and you've been looking online to figure out ways to make shopping and so forth in your Dungeons and Dragons world, or for players to spend gold or sell loot or purchase loot, I haven't found much online for it. So this is just some stuff that I'm doing for my world, um, for the sake of shopping and being able to move around with a character in a Dungeons and Dragons city that I'm creating on my own. It's a homebrew one. So just jumping right into it, this is a part of the main area that I've drawn on a map, and I do have parts that I build three-dimensional so they can be interacted with character pieces and so forth during gameplay. And I can get stuff about that later on. This is just going to be a quick video if I can get it to work. I'm sorry about all these pop-ups. It's nothing's. But just to show you like how I'm going about trying to make it to where my city is interactive. So this is a general map. This map's a lot bigger. This is just a picture of the area that I'm specifically working on. Because I have like all my books and stuff, and I work on this, and I have my laptop that I do a lot of information on. But this is just a general idea. So just first off, this is Lord Alexander, and a little bit of lore behind him, which I'm not going to make the video about lore, so don't worry about that. But I have Lord Alexander owns Alexander's by the arena. Lord Alexander is the most successful merchant in the city. He is rarely seen unless the games are on the arena. His company is aristocratic lifestyle. However, he is known to make deals with wealthy, successful merchants. So not a lot of lore specific to this here, which is my folder that I have shopping in. So what I've done is right here is Lord Alexander's. And there's some stuff here. There's wagons and so forth. Things that you can buy at Lord Alexander's shop. So when players play my D&D game, with whatever, right? They go exploring. Like I've done a haunted castle, which I built a whole castle and everything. Really cool. I can make a video about that if anybody's interested. Well, I could show you what I've done. I took a lot of pictures. But say they get loot and all that, and they won't actually be able to spend it. Because I know, like, in a lot of games, you're not really spending any of the stuff. Okay, well, here players can say they come to this city and that they're at this in particular spot, and I call this the arena district, pretty much in my city. And it has a lot of items there because people gamble, a lot for the fights, and so forth. And, a lot of good objects come in and out of here because of it being a capital city and there being a lot of gambling and so forth around here. And I'll keep this map here to the side, but you can see like here's a hotel. I need to update it because I've had this map for over a year and I just worked on it off and on. But I have hotels. Here's a hotel you can see that I've done. But specifically, this is about shopping, so I want to show you my idea of how shopping. So say players are in this city, and they're like, I want to go to Alexander's. Okay, well, they'll come here to Alexander's, and then going into the folder, as you open the folder up, see if I can find it, but looking at that page, okay, here's the actual folder itself. So I will hand the folder to the player, and then they'll open it up and see this page, and then I'll show you them. But they can shop. So if they want to tell me something that they're looking for specifically, I'll have the NPC, because there's multiple NPCs in, Lord Alexander's shop. He's not there, but there's people in there that work for him. But I also wanted to make it to where players, as I'm talking to another player, say another player wants to go over here to the blacksmith shop, which I'm trying to use my mouse. I can allow this player to look through the folder and shop. So say we're player 1 and we're at Lord Alexander's, and it's like, okay, there's nothing specific that I want to buy with my gold or anything. I just want to see what the shop has, because I like to explore Dungeons and Dragons cities and what people build, but a lot of people don't go into great detail with the cities. It's very basic and stuff. which kind of bums me out because I think it's super fun to explore a city that's fantasy. But here, what I did is I made some scrolls, ninth level spell scrolls in Dwarvish. Now the scroll acts the same way in Dungeons and Dragons 2014 5e. You know, mythical cipher. So all the rules I still keep apply. This is just to add a little bit of touch flavor from a fantasy world that I'm creating. Yeah, and I did a lot of them and other stuff. Like down here, I wrote this scroll in common. I did some other ones. I think I took some pictures, but it still works the same way. It has to be on a spellcaster spell list, or it has to be readily available, you know, or fixed in their mind. The same rules apply, you know. So if it's a wizard spell, and they want to put it in a wizard book, and it's a 5th level wizard, but it's a ninth level spell, they still have to make the DC 19 to be able to put it into, you know, the spell book, if it's a wizard spell, you know, and stuff like that. Same rules apply, it's just a little flavor. But this also is a very successful merchant, as I said, so that's why I have some very expensive spell scrolls here. But I also try to keep something simple, you know, potion of growth, and I like to have the potions because players who aren't spellcasters, you know, even though magic can be done to them, like they can touch the player, like a spellcaster can touch a non-spellcaster player and still get some magic. But if they wanted to have a little bit, that's where these potions come in. And then I went even further in my world to take the basic weapons, you know, which is going to be, not to get too off topic here. Here's something else I recommend though. Like I put notes on my player's handbook to find things. But I took the basic armor, you know, on page 145, and the basic weapons on page 149 of the player's handbook, and I just spiced them up to have a little fun, to be able to create a you know, fantasy world. So I took the great axe, which I believe is 30 gold pieces, and I just said when you're within 50 feet of a skeleton, it glows purple. And the requirement is you have to be a dwarf in order for it to glow purple. You know, just to add a lot, so I can make room to add a lot of things to my world. You know, and I just slowly up the gold price on it. Okay, so if you're with me this far, first off, I appreciate you sticking with me. And then I know some people are like me, where it's like, okay, well, how do you price these items? And for me, that's been tough to do. But for instance, here's that same one down here that I'm pointing at, and I priced it at 37 gold pieces. Simply because it's 30 gold by itself. Normally, I added 7 extra gold just because it allows you to be able to, you know, be aware if there's a skeleton within 50 feet of you. That skeleton can be in another room that you can't see when you're in a hallway, but it'll still glow. And the way I keep track of it is when I'm with my players, and I mostly just DM with my family. I just let them tell me what weapon they have in their hand. I make note of it on my laptop, which I keep track of hit points, so forth, if there's battles going on. And then I know that they are using that weapon. And then I have a printout, not a printout, but, you know, a picture that I take of things that I set up, so I know where all the monsters are. So that way, if they're in there exploring, I can put a monster if they go into a room. But where they're at, I can look where they're at in live gameplay on the table. That's all 3-dimensional, because that's how I do it. Well, at least when there's battling going on. And then I can see where they're at, and then I know if something's within 50 feet, because on my laptop I have a picture of what they don't see. But I preset it up and took a picture so I know where they're at in relation to it. And then if they're within 50 feet of something, I could tell them, you start to notice that your great axe is glowing purple, which just tells them they know that there's a skeleton within 50 feet of them, but they don't know where because they don't see it. But I know because I took a picture of a preset up on my laptop, which is part of my DM screen style. But that's a way just to give you the idea of this item, because I want to put a bunch of stuff in my stores, and I don't want it to just be, you know, oh, okay, well, tell me what you want and you find it. I mean, if they want to do that, that's fine too. I'm not trying to make somebody shop in a D&D world when they don't want to. but I think it's fun to have these options, especially if somebody isn't sure what they want to do. But going to like, and these gemstones here you could find in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I believe. So I include some of that stuff too. And I price these things what I can based on the book. So DMG is real useful, and it tells you that a consumable scroll, a consumable item, is, how to say, half the cost. Let me see real quick. I have a note just in case you're curious about it. But it's page 133, and this is just a little notes that I took. And I believe this is going to be the Dungeon Master Guide 2014 if it came out the same way. But it gives you some magic base prices right there. So that's where I came up with a lot of my prices, for that. But going forward here, trying to stay on track. This is another page that I created. I have another spell scroll here written in Draconic. Same. This is the back of the other one, just telling you if you want to put it into a wizard's book, what you have to do, assuming that it is a wizard spell. I have to double check that. I probably checked that before. But I did some magical arrows, priced it at 5 gold. Some things I just try to make a best price for. This enchanted bow glows green within 50 feet of goblins. I priced that at 55 gold pieces because a normal longbow is 50 gold. And goblins aren't really all that difficult to kill, so I just simply added 5 gold to it for somebody who wants to know that goblins, are coming toward them. Say somebody's low on hit points, for instance, because they fought something else, and they're going somewhere, and then that glows green. They're like, oh, goblins are potentially this way, let's go somewhere else because, our cleric's spells are exhausted. We haven't taken a long rest, and we don't want to afford to get somebody on the verge of having to make death saving throws. So it's a way to, be advantageous depending on how it's used. Then I have some other things: potion of supreme healing, potion of cold resistance, stuff like that, just so they can spend their gold on fun things. And yeah, this, in my world, I make magic items purchasable, and so forth. And the way that I keep rogues and so forth from wanting to steal everything is in where this shop specifically is that I'm showing you. It's in the arena district. There's a lot of guards here. This is the capital city, so there is a security force for the city by itself, but then there's also different groups, I forget the word, but that are there, and have their own clans and so forth going on, and Lord Alexander's going to have his own security group, watching his stuff because he owns, let's put here, majority of what's going on here. Like, he has one of the most expensive shops, 9th level scrolls that you've seen on the first one. He also has this hotel right here that he does. So he's, there's a lot of security here, so it's not simple just to steal it. And I'll make that, clear where players go. In other parts of this specific city that I'm building, that would be easier to do. So if a rogue is like, yeah, I want to try to go pickpocket people and all that stuff, well, there's places they can go for that. But certain places, you're just probably going to get picked up, arrested, so forth. Or, even worse, beat down by a security force that's not the city. But that's the general idea. But these are just some other really cool things that I put in there where they can buy. Going to the next one, next page, and I'm working on this page. I love just coming up with creative magical items, and I think it's fun for players who want to shop. And mind you, like what we're going through here is the player who went into Alexander's shop. And this is just one player. I normally do 4 players at my table because that's what, I'm getting good at doing. But say, like, as this player's shopping here, another player says, okay, well, I have, say they have a horse, and they're like, I want to be able to go into the blacksmith animal armor shop, and stuff like that. So I think I don't think I took a picture of that, so you see, well, I have a spot for that. If I don't have a picture here, I'll show you. But say like this, while this player's browsing this book, they're not sitting at my, at a table or in the living room wherever we're playing. They're not sitting there bored. They're browsing and shopping. Like what I can spend my stuff on. And if they see something they want, they can either make a note in a journal that they have, or they could take it out and just kind of set it to the side, be like, yeah, I do want to purchase this item. And another great way about this is the concept of inventory, right? So once one's bought, they take it out, it's gone. You can't buy it again, until they use it. And they use it, they give it back to me. I just put it in a shop somewhere else in the world. And one of the examples, let's see, I think it was here. Let me bring this back up real quick. But one of the things here is I left this blank so I can write down here in pencil how many of those gemstones are available. So I can change the number and say like a player's like they buy all the red ones. Well, then I'll put a 0 there, and then like say like another session or so later, they come back and they're like, oh, I want to go back to Alexander's and buy some more red gemstones. Well, if I put there that there's still 0, it's like, well, there's still none there. You have to come back later. Well, I put like there's 1. That means somebody came and sold 1 of those gemstones. I can change the availability on items like this when I just want to have an availability number versus having an actual whole sheet, like what I've made here, which I just think is cool to have them because they can have these scrolls. My mom, for instance, loves these things, so she can put them in slots like these, and when she uses it, she'll give it back to me, but at least she has them to go through. It just makes it, more fun, I think. But yeah, it's just some other stuff. So here's another pretty cool one that I came up with the other day, and I best guess it when it comes to pricing. So the enchanted longbow. The longbow, 50 gold pieces. And the reason that I got this one at 80 gold pieces is because of how I have it set up. So you have to be an elf druid, so that's very specific. Elf race, druid class. But it allows me to make other bows more valuable. So if you get like a longbow that has +1, on attack roll, that could be for any creature. That should be a pretty expensive item. Or if you have a longbow that's +1 damage on any creature, that should be a pretty expensive item. Because you take a longbow with +1, damage on any creature in D&D, and they're trying to hit a dragon, adult red dragon, adult blue dragon, ancient red dragon. That +1 is very advantageous, so you want to, in my opinion, make some earning. But how I did this bow illuminates white when within 50 feet of a banshee. So the bow is an ordinary longbow. But if you're within 50 feet of a banshee, same as what I said earlier, about my computer stuff, I'll tell them that that bow is lighting up. And then they know that a banshee is within 50 feet of that player. And to me, 80 gold pieces for that information is pretty useful. Because if a banshee has that 1 per day yell, and it can drop you to 0 hit points if you don't make that save, and you have to look it up in the Monsters Manual, which that's another thing I use. I use this Monsters Manual a lot for creating special weapons and pricing them. But since a banshee can drop you to 0 hit points if you don't make that save. Like say your character has 45 hit points and you don't make the save. Boom, 45 hit points is gone. That means your cleric is going to have to cast, spells to get you hit points back. And then they're losing, their spell slots that they don't get back until after a long rest. So there's a lot you can lose there, that could be useful later during a fight. And if you take a longbow that's 50 gold pieces, just a regular basic one, and you're like, okay, we're going into the dungeons or a castle, we heard from locals or so forth that, we know that there's ghosts and potentially banshee and stuff down there. To me, spending an extra 30 gold on a longbow to let me know if one is within 50 feet of me is very useful, because that keeps me from losing that 45 hit points. So essentially you're saving yourself 45 hit points for the cost of 30 gold. It's a very good weapon, and I think 30 gold pieces for that knowledge is very useful. You know, especially when you take other kind of ideas that I did, where you have, let me see, like this one, enchanted longbow, uncommon. This is a +1 to attack rolls though when fighting goblins. You know, but what I'm trying to get at is how I try to price it. So when we get example the next one over, the enchanted longbow. So this is a +1 to attack roll when fighting goblins. So that +1 only counts to goblins only, and you have to be a human fighter for this benefit. And I also put on here attunement. So the person would have to attune to it, and you can only attune to 3 items, which you all know. But I priced that at 65 gold pieces. You know, and some people might be like, okay, well that's pretty cheap, or maybe that's a lot. It really just depends on you and how you view it. But a 50 gold piece longbow, 65 pieces. The reason I set it at that price is because you have to be a human fighter. So again, specific to the race and the class. You know, so if I don't have a human fighter, no one's gonna want to buy it, right? But if they meet an NPC that's a human fighter, maybe a player will be like, I'll buy this for them so they can use it. And again, this longbow only gives you a +1 attack rolls on goblins. So if you're fighting a skeleton or a banshee, you don't get the +1, right? So you just have a normal bow. It'll still glow green because on the back I said it glows green if within 50 feet of a goblin. So it'll glow green if you're within 50 feet of a goblin, but when you shoot it, you don't get the +1 unless you're doing it directly at the goblin. And again, it's +1 to attack roll only, so you don't get a +1 to damage rolls. But this is me going into detail about it. And I priced it at 65 gold pieces because goblins really just aren't that hard to kill. Like, they don't really need this weapon. People can mow through goblins real easy. You know, but making some really cool, you know, magic and wanting to fill my storage with actual items to shop, I created this specific to this, and I priced it at 65 gold. And I know that I would be willing to spend more money on a longbow that tells me if a banshee is within 50 feet of me. You know, so knowing that this, in my opinion, is about a 65 gold bow, it seems like it'd be fairly worth 65 gold. You know, that tells me that this banshee bow would definitely be worth more. That's why I priced it at 80. And the reason I didn't go higher is because it's specific to an elf druid. If it was an enchanted longbow doing the same thing, letting me know that a banshee is within 50 feet, but there's no requirement any race class could use it, I would say that bow should be worth more. But it's just how I try to help me price items. Okay, and then I'll go to the next one here, and this is a different example. So, and this one here I'm working on pricing out, but just to have more creative items in my world. So that's Alexander's, right? Some of what he has to offer. You can also buy wagons there and so forth. But that's part of what you can buy at Alexander. So say while player 1 is shopping Alexander, say player 2 is like, okay, they're just like, that's cool, but I'd rather go look around somewhere else. And then say they come over here to this part. So this is Towns and Taverns Volume 1, and I have page 23 and 24. So if you have that book, this whole layout is an actual layout that I can lay out and the player can move around. But with the shop, it's mostly a lot of food and stuff here. While some of the things that player 2, say player 1's over here at Alexander's and player 2's over here, and they're all just kind of in a, you know, around the arena. Well, say player 2 wants to come over here to the market. Well, these are things that I have at the market, which I'm still working on, that they can buy. And I'm pricing it now. But say that, like, you know, there's an apple. It gives you +1 temporary hit points, but you have to, you know, be a human fighter to gain the benefit. Otherwise, it's just a regular apple. You know, and I have that at 6.5 gold pieces. And then you have +1 for a human, which you can be a human any class, as long as your race is human. So I price that at 7 gold pieces. You know, and stuff like that. So the benefit, let's see, how did I do this one? Yeah, so the benefit here is if you have a healing potion, I believe it's 2d4 +2. You know, so that's 50 gold pieces. And let's say that you average 2 on the d4. So you get like 2, 4, 6, you know, depending on your rolls. You get 6 healing hit points for 50 gold. Okay, so that's kind of how that averages out. So what I did was I priced it accordingly, which I think that comes out to around, I forget what it comes out to. I think it's like 9. Hey Siri, pull up my calculator.
You have one appointment coming up.
Pull up my calculator.
All day September 1st, 2025 to September.
Never mind, it's not working. But why I got these prices here is I took the 50 gold that a healing potion cost, and then I turn around and I put what you're likely to get. And I'd like to get my calculator pulled up, but see if I can find it real quick so I can show you. Hey Siri, pull up my calculator. Okay, so it finally did it. But what I'm saying is, like, you take 50 gold and you divide that by, let's say, 6, because that's the average of what you get. So you're pretty much paying 8.33 gold pieces per healing point. You know, so 8 gold pieces and 3 silver pieces, you know, essentially. You know, and then the way that I priced it was, if you're a human fighter, it's very specific, right? So it's kind of like a reward for shopping, you know, the world that or the city specifically here. So you're able to get that apple for 6.5 gold pieces. So even though, like, it's what is 1 temporary hit point, right? It's kind of pointless, but it's to help me price the economy in my world. You know, so if somebody's like, okay, I have this apple and you know, I just got hit in a fight, I'm gonna go ahead and eat the apple. I wouldn't even charge an action for it. Essentially, I'd just be like, yeah, you can eat the apple because it's just +1. You know, and then as it goes to human, you know, it's more likely to be bought, right? So here you need a human fighter specifically for that. That's why it's cheaper, and I priced it at 7 gold pieces. You know, because 8 is the average. You know, and then this one here is just a +1 hit point, and you could be any class, any race, so you're paying 8 gold pieces for it. But that's why I come up with my pricing as I try to build my economy in the game. And then I just have very specific things. You can check it out here if you want. I don't want to read through it all, but like some for specific stuff. Apple +1 acrobatics check. So if someone's going to make an acrobatics check, they can eat an apple, because I have it not specific to any class or race, you know, and then they get +1 to that acrobatics check before they go to do it, right? So just, I think, cool things like that to help price things out and make things to be able to buy, you know, if you're into shopping, and just a whole bunch of stuff like that, which I think is super fun. You know, and then so let's say like player 3, and this is where I'm at here, and I did get a picture. Say, so you got player 1 at Alexander's, player 2's over here shopping, you know, the fruit stands, and that's some cool fruit things that you can buy there. And say that player 3 is like, okay, well, I want to shop the blacksmith for animal armor. This is, I barely started working on this. Well, no, I have worked on it, but I just haven't messed with it. But this is a general idea. So the game says animal armor is 3 times the cost of regular armor and 3 times the weight of regular armor. But I know that some players can't just buy all out costs, you know, for the creature. They want to maybe buy a little bit of armor for their, you know, creature, but they also want to be able to buy scrolls, potions, or apples for an acrobatics check, stuff like that. So what I did was I took specifically here for ring meal, I took the cost, times it by 3, and then I just broke it down, you know, to where the cost is based on what the game says, you know, but the armor class is what I distributed, you know, to what I think would make sense, you know. So here, a helmet for a tiger, it gives it 4 AC, 20 gold pieces. So it's cool because if they get a tiger and they don't want it to die, they can spend a little bit of money protecting it. Tiger chest plate, 6 armor class, and that's at 60 gold pieces. And so forth. But it all adds up the same. For the tiger, I have a whole tiger set of armor here if they wanted to buy the whole set of armor. But if they just wanted to buy pieces of it until they're able to get more money because they want to buy potions or a healing apple, or they want to buy something else also, but they want a little bit of protection for their animal, they can do that. And then here I have a horse helmet, in the neck armor, heavy armor splint. I'm not sure what the splint means. I'd have to look. I'm sure it has some use that I did on it, but same thing. So cost 175 gold pieces, provides 4 AC. And I'll have to look into that more. But just to give an idea, that's how I'm building shopping in my world. So I have things at Alexander's. I'm going to be doing a lot more armor, a lot more special armor. Like armor that can perhaps, like, I don't know, do something for the creature, right? Like, say, like, here's, I don't know, you just got to be creative with it. But I'll come up with more creative things for, for the creature. So, like, I want to have, armor that potentially makes the animal, almost invisible or something to that nature, which I wouldn't know how to price something like that. Now, I imagine that would be really expensive pricing depending on multiple things. One, what kind of armor is it, and what AC does it offer, two, what animal is it for, because the animals themselves deal damage. So if this animal can deal some really bad, dangerous damage, you'd want that armor to cost more money because somebody's going to want to protect an asset like that. So there's a lot of things that go into how I price things in the world, but this is part of how I do things. But this is specifically to the arena district that I'm working on and some of the shops that I have here. And the blacksmith one is here, which is pretty cool. I want to work on that more. And then I just have other shops. And I also made it to where there's a vacant shop here where I haven't quite figured out how to price the real estate in my game yet when it comes to big cities, because my city's still developing. But I want to make it to where a player can buy a shop and say the shop is like 1 story, and then the shop can hold X amount of items, like it can hold 200 items. There'd be a limit, right, and so forth. And then if players get stuff and they don't want to sell it to a merchant for the price that they're offering or whatever, they could put it in their shop. And occasionally, depending on how things go and whatnot, I'll let some of their things in their shop sell, for them. But that's how I try to make my cities interactive and fun, and where D&D is just not combat. That's not all just theater of mind, but there are things that you can flip through for folks that do get a little bored with that, and do stuff like that with the world. So I know shopping's fun. Some people like it, some people don't. But I was looking for a video on YouTube showing items that you put into these, and I'm still working on a lot. I'm going to work on a lot more. I'm actually going to work on some stuff tonight because it's just super fun for me to do. But yeah, and then the pricing of things, I think that's more on your world and the economy you're building. So I don't think you could say like there's a certain price for everything. It really just depends how much gold, loot, treasure, whatever you give your players. And then it depends on, do you have magic readily available in your world? Is your world in a city, like I'm building a capital city, something, so you can kind of equate it to like the size of Chicago, as a good example, or like Los Angeles, the greater Los Angeles. I'm talking like the whole Los Angeles County. That's how big I'm wanting this specific stuff that I have in my video to be. So there's tons of stuff here, and this is where players can go, to do pretty much anything, and then they can be out in other places. Like right now my group is in a small village, and there's not really any magic at this village at all. It's a very basic village, very simple. There's nothing crazy going on like what's here. But this city, I want it to be so mind-blowing that when they get to it, they're just like, wow, just this is crazy. This is a whole cool thing of D&D magic, and world lore and so forth that they can do. And mind you, like this here, I was just specifically showing you like the stores, my map layout, and all that stuff. But some of the stuff, I mean, I'll set up streets, like I have grids that I'll roll out, and I'll put buildings that I have, and I have a bunch of little figurines, like in my glass case back there. I have a bunch of figurines, so I can set it up too to make it fun. But I also do things like there's a lot of NPCs, so it's not just about shopping. When they are shopping, they can go. For instance, I don't have it on this part of the map, but down here I have multiple floors in a building. Like you can see very small down here where it says 7. There's 7 floors to that building. So they could say they're on floor 1. I have a folder, like Lord Alexander's where they can go into. And then I might have it to where it's like so much here, and then there'd be another amount here while I have it like tied, and that'll be floor 2. They're like, oh, can I see that? I'd be like, well, yeah, you have to go to floor number 2. Just to keep that creative, fun energy going. And they're like, yeah, I want to go to floor number 2. I'll say, okay, so I'll put, like a clip on floor 1 and then open up floor 2. So you can browse these now because you're on floor 2. And stuff like that. But not only just that, like there could be one place, for instance, that I've been designing to add some lore to it. So it's an area where there's a lot of shops and stuff, and there's items that you can buy as a cleric. So say a cleric wants to write spell scrolls, but they need items from the spell materialist to be able to write the scroll. Well, there's an area where there's like a store and it's a hangout where mostly clerics hang out there. So there's like a pub there where you can talk to clerics and so forth, but there's also a shop where they can buy materials to write scrolls themselves. Where there can be scrolls like specifically for clerics and whatnot. The shop caters to clerics pretty much specifically, right? And then they just find it in the city. So there's a little bit of lore behind it, but also some fun where they can shop, they can talk to other clerics, they can get information, be able to find places where there might be good treasure that they've heard of. There's a lot of plot hooks you can attach to it too. But I'm going to go ahead and end this video because I could talk forever. It's so fun. I hope this got the point across that I wanted to get across to people with how I try to create shopping and stuff in my city. And to the point where treasure, when you get it, is pointless because you don't sell it. Or even if you do sell it, you get gold and you don't do nothing with the gold. I want to be able to make the treasure hoards, the gold, and stuff that players find be something that they're excited about, and they don't just write a number down on their character sheet or in their journal, or whatever it is. They don't just write it down and be like, oh, okay, well, whatever. They don't just pass it off. I want it to matter to them. And I hope this helps people in a way to at least give you, your own way of creating your world. But if you found this awesome or helpful in any way, let me know. And then I would love to keep sharing a lot of what I'm doing with my world, because I'm going to keep building this city. I have tons of folders. I'm just going to keep building it and building it and building it. And if you want to see more of how it develops, I'd be happy to share. I guess that's that you let me know. That way I know that this is getting out there, and people are loving, what I'm doing, and they're like, man, I really want to see more of it. Otherwise, I normally just work on it and just keep it in my own files and stuff for me to enjoy. But if y'all like it, please, tell me, and I'll be happy to keep posting more stuff of what I get going on and things, and even pictures of me setting things up 3-dimensional if people are interested to see how my city comes and how it turns out. Anyway, if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and I hope you get going in the right direction with where you want to go with your world and your stores and all that stuff. And if you do have content that you share also, I'd also love to see it too, because I'm always looking for really good videos of people creating their worlds, but it's hard to find them. But if you're one of those people that do it, I'd love to see it. But thank you for checking my stuff out. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a good evening, day, morning, etc. So until next time, see ya.